Hello and welcome to this week's Property News Update. My special guest is Veronica Morgan, who'll join me in just a moment, and we're going to talk about these things, going green and how it pays for you. Brisbane declared as the lucky city. Our first native rooftop farm, land banking scheme that is actually going to go to court, and escape from the city with a bit of a pub twist. Back in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
And joining me to help us work through our stories of the week, Veronica Morgan from Good Deeds Property Buyers. G'day, Veronica. How are you doing?
Hello there, Kevin. I'm going well.
Good enough. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about what we've got coming up in Real Estate Talk, and you actually feature in that show as well this week. So, wow, we've got a lot of Veronica with us this week.
I've always got plenty to say. I think you've worked that out.
Yeah, we like that about you, Veronica. Hey, what about going green? Our first story comes from Zillow. Not only can adding solar panels to a home save energy costs, it also can potentially increase the home's value. Now, as a buyer's agent, I'm really keen to get your take on this one, Veronica.
Well, I think it's good. It's certainly a good sign. I'm not yet seeing the demand from consumers that you could automatically correlate the prices are going to go up if you put solar panels on your roof, but I think it's a fabulous thing for us all to be doing. And it was actually interesting, the other night I was watching Media Watch on the ABC, and they were taking Sunrise apart for having done this advertorial on trying to plug batteries. So it's not just the panels these days, it's the batteries that we have to think about. But they got their figures wrong. I don't know if you watched it.
No, I didn't. No.
They were talking about the payback period on these solar batteries and trying to encourage people to install them, and saying that you get your money back in 5 years, and yet anybody with simple maths ability would be able to calculate from the figures that the case study gave that it's going to take 11 and a half years to get your money back. So
yes, the reason I was interested in this is because power is such a big talking point in Australia right now, the cost of electricity. So I would imagine in time that solar panels are definitely going to add value to a house. This particular story, if you click on the link, you'll see they talk about a fairly big increase in value. I sometimes wonder how they work those things out.
Well, they did the methodology at the bottom of that article, where they did say that they were surveying, sales of properties that were roughly similar. But I think the other thing that the article did mention was the idea that if you have solar panels, you might be inclined to have more features in your home. So, like, for instance, one of the ones that they suggested was, say, heated floors. And so you might then extrapolate that to say, well, maybe the heated floors added the value rather than the panels. So it's like a package deal.
Yeah. I guess it shows that every house is different, isn't it? And no two houses you can compare and say, well, this one's the same as that, so therefore the value's the same. So must make it hard for valuers as well.
Oh, it makes it really difficult. And it's actually one of the things that really infuriates me when I'm reading property, headlines that are using these sort of macro data for argument's sake and saying, this will add 4.1% to the value of your home. It's like, well, not every home, not equally. And how did you work out what it was worth before versus what it's worth afterwards? So, it's a nice headline.
But everyone's house, they have an opinion that their house is worth more than you or I are ever going to tell them anyway.
Exactly right. You've been a sales agent. You've heard that.
I have heard it all quite often. Hey, Real Estate Talk is out tomorrow. Watch out for it. Sydney rents slowing down. Cameron Cusher from CoreLogic will join us and tell us about that. We've got a warning for strata schemes as well. That's from Grant Mifsud. And 5 effects of falling interest rates, Shannon Davis. And the star of this show, Veronica Morgan, will join us, and she helps us read the property smoke signals. So watch out for that. That's coming up tomorrow in the show. Okay, on to story number 2, Veronica. This one comes from News Limited about how Brisbane is the lucky city. A huge jump in house prices in Brisbane being predicted as Australia's market approaches a bit of a bottom. They're predicting here a 20% growth over the next 3 years. What do you think of that?
Well, I just think it's so brave to put absolute numbers on any prediction. You know, I think I don't know if you've read our full or forecaster report. Every year we put it out, the Elephant in the Room podcast. So I think this will be a classic case for next year's full or forecaster report. We'll have to look back and see whether it's, you know, it starts to look like it's panning out. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder whether the headline should read instead, you know, Brisbane house prices rise steeply after a number of headlines say that it's going to.
You know, I did the sums on this, and you'd probably be aware that the Brisbane market, you know, year after year for decades has improved in value by around 5 to 6% each year. Now, if you compound that out over the next 3 years, you are actually looking at compound growth of around 18 to 20%. So it's nothing extraordinary. What I think it does is highlight how poor they're predicting the Sydney and Melbourne markets are going to perform over the next 3 years. Yeah,
well, they are suggesting that they will go up around, 6 or 7%. I think, once again, you know, predicting an entire market, I mean, Brisbane, and the article does seem to mess up in some regards houses and apartments and, you know, and then you've got new apartments versus existing apartments and you've got all of that stuff going on. So I think it's a bit hard to take a headline like that or any of those forecasts and say, oh, great, well, now's the time to buy into Brisbane.
And, you know, the other thing too is that you said you've got to be very brave to make those kind of predictions. Yes, you do. But if you think about it, Veronica, they're saying it's going to go up by 20% over the next 3 years. So it's going to take us 3 years to prove them wrong.
Exactly right.
So I mean, if it doesn't happen in the next 12 months, they'll say, oh, well, the next 12 months is going to be even better.
Or even better, you say, oh, no, I got the prediction right. I just got the exact time wrong, or I got the exact number wrong.
Yeah, there's a couple of commentators I know who've been waiting for decades for their predictions to come true. So, and they keep rolling them over year after year. But anyway, there you go. Hey, let's have a look at our next story from SBS, our first native rooftop farm. I love this story. This is an Indigenous-run enterprise in Sydney's inner suburb of Everleigh. And it's a bit of a community gem. We'll bring up some of the photos to show you what's happening here. But I love this because they're talking about native plants and their healing power. And it's an interesting article, Veronica.
Well, also you can eat them. You know, there's edibles in there as well. And I think one of the things that I found interesting, and I've often wondered about this with rooftop gardens, I think there's 3 W's you've got to think about. There's water, there's weight, and there's wind. And so they refer to both. Well, actually all 3 of them they refer to. You've got to water these plants, and water's got to get away somehow. So they've got to be the type of plants that can, you know, well, I don't know much about gardening. I'm an absolute brown thumb.
Obviously you don't.
I sort of know the things that could go wrong. You certainly don't want lots of weight on a roof that hasn't been engineered to withstand that weight. Water obviously weighs a ton, so does dirt and all the rest of it. So I just thought it was really interesting in terms of their approach with the type of plants, you know, the height of those plants, the way in which that they absorb or use water, and considering the wind as well, so they don't get blown off or blown over. It was quite fascinating.
I often think about swimming pools on the top of buildings too. And, you know, what would happen if there was a small leak and how far down it would go. Like, it'd be catastrophic.
What do you mean it would happen? It happens all the time.
Yeah. I saw a video recently, and I'm sure it may have been in the Philippines, where there was an earthquake and a pool on top of the building was affected. And you could see the water welling up and then spilling over the side. Quite scary.
Yes, no, that's not. I don't love pools on rooftops. That's definitely for all those. Well, maybe not the earthquake reason in Sydney, but certainly the leaking is an absolute problem.
Yeah, I think there are places I wouldn't want to be in the event of an earthquake, and that's probably one of them, on the rooftop in a pool. That'd be pretty disastrous.
Be surfing off the edge.
We're going to come back in just a moment. We've got a real big warning for you. About a scam with a couple of well-known scammers, and they're finally ending up in court. Veronica, Morgan and I will be back to talk about that in just one moment.
Your business card is a vital selling tool and a constant visual reminder of who you are, what you do, and more importantly, how you can be contacted. Introducing our new Velvet business cards, featuring a luxurious premium laminate that has a velvet texture and is soft to the touch. Printed on a resilient 450 GSM card, these cards can be printed with a range of spot gloss and foiling options to give your office that prestigious look.
Welcome back to the show. My co-host and guest is Veronica Morgan from Good Deeds Property Buyers, who joins us, and she's in Real Estate Talk tomorrow in the show too, so don't miss that. We're talking about the smoke signals and what they're telling us. Okay, no, it's better than tea leaf reading, isn't it, Veronica?
There's a fair amount of that goes on in the property market, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah. Let's go to our next story. This one comes from Commercial Real Estate, and this is all about a couple of scammers who we've spoken about before, spruikers, Jamie McIntyre and Henry Kay. They finally hit the headlines again over a scam that dates back to 2011. Now, this involves land banking, and here they were talking about old farmland and also rubbish dumps, Veronica.
Oh boy, I read these, and some of the words that you pluck out of these articles is they target vulnerable and financially unsophisticated Australian investors and gullible investors, and this whole idea of get rich quick schemes and the fast track and all that stuff. And so we're talking 7 or 8 years ago now, and how many people have been affected by this, and only now is it getting to court? Mm-hmm. And are they really going to have a chance of getting their money back anyway? What a horror.
Well, they won't. I mean, the money's gone. They don't know where, and there's millions and millions of dollars. But, all you've got to do, if someone gives you a deal that you think is too good to be true, just go and research the people concerned and, ask around a little bit. All you'd have to do is put Jamie McIntyre and Henry Kay into the internet, and you'd find out a lot about why you shouldn't be dealing with these guys. I mean, it really is. It's not rocket science.
No, but I think this is the problem: is that the Australian dream's well and truly alive. We all want to get rich in property. We hear these stories about other people that are doing it, and people don't tend to fess up to the stuff that goes wrong because you don't want to look like an idiot. So you're not, most people just are blissfully unaware of the risks that they're taking because they only ever hear the good stories. Mm.
Yeah, well, it's sad, isn't it? But anyway, it does happen. But I guess, we just keep banging on about this and spruikers, and if the deal looks too good, then maybe it is. So just be very careful. Let's go to our final story. This one comes from News Limited, and Escape from the City with a bit of a pub twist. Yeah, now Escape from the City is a great show that's on the ABC right now, so I couldn't resist throwing this one in. This is where people escape from the city, maybe buy a pub, and gee, I tell you what, there were some pretty good ones available in regional Victoria. There was one there, we might be able to bring the photo up, a Bluestone pub for, I think it was just a touch over 200,000, Veronica.
I looked at some of those and all I can think of is work, hard work. And,
but doesn't it sound fantastic?
Exactly, it's the romance of it. I know. I'm going to move to a gorgeous country town.
Yes.
And there was one where the leaseholder was selling the lease. So I think it's important to talk about in pubs too. You don't necessarily own the building.
That's right.
You might own the licence. So she's trying to sell the licence for a pub that she's held for, 8 or 9 years or something, for $75,000. And then you look at the town has got a population of 555 people. Yeah, I get pretty bored seeing the same 555 faces coming through the door.
I'd want to find out how many of them are alcoholics, I guess.
How many are underage,
Yeah. I often wonder about publicans. You see them and they're nearly always having to have a drink with their mates and so on, and they have those little tiny drinks, and they don't drink a lot, but I tell you what, it would be a real trap, wouldn't it? Sounds fantastic, but boy, I tell you what, as you said, work.
Well, one of them actually had a sign on the roof that said meals 7 days. I think that says it all. There's no break. If you want to get away from the rat race and escape the city, I think you could find yourself working a lot harder. Well,
and also too, if you're out in one of those regional areas, there's not many places to go, are there? I mean, the local pub is probably the best place, and that's where you work.
Look, having said this though, actually an old school friend of mine, he and his partner and a friend, they actually bought a pub in Beechworth. So they bought the building and they've been renovating over time, and it's a big, beautiful, they've got a lovely restaurant in there, and they're really just creating a lifestyle out of it. But they also all of them have a background in hospitality, so that might help. But they somewhat knew what they were getting into.
Yeah, and that's the other secret too, is there's more than one, so they can give each other a bit of a break, and I think that's pretty important too.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, Veronica, you have a great weekend. You got many auctions coming up this weekend that you're bidding at?
Well, not me personally, my team does.
Oh,
I'm actually off to the snow. I'm going to
Good on you.
Enjoying the blizzard.
I'll be thinking of you. Where I'm residing right now, it feels like snow, but it's not, because...
Really?
No, well, it's not. It's. I think we're getting down to about 9 degrees, which for me is absolutely freezing.
Wow.
So
Yes, you northern, are you?
I know, exactly. Hey, Veronica, great talking to you, my friend. All the best. Enjoy your time in the snow. Thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to having you as a pre-record tomorrow in Real Estate Talk.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Good on
Have a
you,
great
Veronica Morgan. And Real Estate Talk is on tomorrow. A little bit later today, Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic will join me, and we'll have a look at the auction activity coming up in the next week. And then he comes back on Monday and gives us a wrap on the whole weekend. So lots of programs coming your way. And don't forget, they're streamed on all the social media channels on YouTube. And then, of course, they all reside at propertytv.io. Thanks for being with us. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Look forward to catching up with you again real soon.